you're someone who is struggling to generate leads, I'm going to show you some of my most powerful strategy when it comes to lead generation so that you can flood your calendars with your ideal customers. And before we go ahead and get started, I want to give a huge shout out to AppSumo. AppSumo is a platform which over 100 million entrepreneurs trust for everything they need to create a fulfilling business. With AppSumo, you can discover, buy, and sell products you need to level up your skills and build the lifestyle and business you're passionate about. And especially if you do any type of cold emailing, cold calling, or any type of lead generation, AppSumo has a ton of different software and tools that you can use, including the one we're going to talk about today, which is Cloudura AI, but more on that later. So let's go ahead and dive into the video. Now, when it comes to lead generation, the most important thing you really need to think about is who your ideal customer is. So the thing is, no matter how great your product and service, right? No matter how many cold emails you send, no matter how many cold calls you do, if you do not have a clear ideal customer profile, all that can actually be a waste of time. So what is an ideal customer profile? Essentially, you want to document or profile the person you want to sell to, right? Whether it's a person, a company, say a C-suite, a director, someone that has a decision-making power. Who is this person? How old are they? And actually, the most important part of an ideal customer profile is actually what pains do they have, because the strongest emotion to get someone to take an action is actually pain, right? So if you think about it, if you break your arm, what are you going to do? You're going to go to a doctor and you're going to pay the doctor however money it costs to make your pain go away, right? So business is the exact same thing. People have business problems. Either they have a goal they can't reach by themselves, they feel frustrated, maybe their business is bleeding out money. There's so many different problems a customer could potentially have, and it's your job to identify the problem and line up your solution so that you are the solution to their problem, right? And so this is what we call creating an ideal customer profile. It's not just their geography, their age, the type of business they're in, employee size, revenue. These are all important facets of creating ideal customer profile, but without the emotional element of what problem do they actually have, well, you're just not going to sell them anything. So clearly identify the pain. So I'll go ahead and give you some examples of how that would work, right? So if you are selling marketing service to software companies, right? Then let's say they have a really great product, they're VC funded, they have money, but they just don't know how to run Facebook ads or Google ads or YouTube ads, whatever the case is, then maybe your agency can help them run those ads so that they can generate revenue. And if they try to do it by themselves, but they just can't figure it out, maybe they need an expert just like you to hold their hand and actually just do it for them. So that is a pain that people have. Or let's say, right now there's a really popular trend where people are building no-code software companies, right? SaaS companies. Let's say there's an entrepreneur out there who has an info product business or a coaching business. He's doing really well, but he wants to take it to the next level. He wants to create a software where he can actually sell subscriptions. But let's say they have no experience doing this, right? So if you had the skills to create this platform for them, whether you can code or sometimes you don't even need to code, then you would be solving his problem. And that person, because they're thinking, hey, I can make $1 million from this. If I pay this person 100K, well, they're basically essentially free, right? I have to pay up front, but then I'm going to make my money back. So if you're able to identify the problems that people have, like the true problems that they're willing to pay money to make those problems go away, then you have a real ideal customer. Without the problem, there is literally no sell. Now, moving to the next step of generating a massive amount of leads for your business or for yourself, the next thing is actually you need to find high quality lead source, right? So there are many tools out there that exist where you can find different emails and leads and things like that. But I personally have found that for certain tools, maybe they're free or whatever the case is, sometimes the emails are wrong, they're outdated, the phone numbers don't work. So you want to find, at least one tool that you can actually rely on. And that actually brings us to our sponsor, which I mentioned earlier, AppSumo, but specifically we're going to be covering one of the softwares that you can actually get there, which is Cloudura. So one of the more interesting apps that I found on AppSumo is Cloudura AI, right? So it is a lead generation platform which has literally over 600 million verified B2B emails, over 12 million direct dials, so the phone numbers you can call, so you can find the person that you actually want to talk to at the organization you want to, right? And at the time of this recording, you can get a lifetime access to Cloudura for just $49, which is insane. So when you're using Cloudura, you can actually search companies based on revenue, company size, industry, buyer intent, company type, so all the different characteristics you would need to filter out and find the right person you want to talk to really fast, right? The really interesting one to me is buyer intent. With buyer intent, it's quite interesting because they're most likely using some type of AI that have some kind of data source and then compiling it to show you exactly which companies are ready to buy. So it's something like if there's a company that's looking for marketing services, the data that they have allows you to see, hey, this company is looking for marketing services, so you should actually reach out to them. And when you do reach out to them, it's actually a little bit more warm because you already know that their intention is to buy those marketing services, right? How they actually get that data, who they're they're getting it from and how they're compiling it all together. I guess that's their secret sauce. That's a very powerful variable indeed. So when you're using a tool like Cloudera, what's important is like you have to understand like who you're trying to go after, what pains do they have. Once you have that crystallized and solidified, you want to go into a platform like Cloudera, and then you want to find these companies, as many as you can, that fit that ideal customer profile, because there's literally millions of people on this list. It might not be too hard, right? So let me show you how it works real quick, right? So, when you're on the actual page and you create an account, right, which you can get for $49 lifetime, basically you can do things like search by what's the role at the company. So let's say I want to go for founders, CXO, like executives, right? Head of, vice president, and director. Okay, great. And then location, I want to do United States. And then, obviously there's going to be more filters to do that, but I just want to give you a quick demo of how this works. So once you search, what's going to happen is it's going to give you all these contacts. It's going to give you their direct dials. It's going to give you their email. So if I press unlock, it's going to show me the actual email. So yeah, they got millions of people here that you can actually reach out to. And then you can also connect this to your CRM so that everything's synced. And when you send the emails, you can like track everything, see what's working and what's not, right? At the end of the day, once you have your ideal customer profile, you just need one way to just get all these emails and this phone number. And so this is a product that you definitely should check out. Link is in the description. So now moving to the next point, right? We got the ideal customer profile. We're able to get their email or their phone number, whichever you prefer. The next step, the key to the formula, is actually mastering one lead generation method. So for example, right, so we got the emails or phone number. You definitely need to get good at least one. You don't necessarily have to be a master at cold calling and a master at cold emailing, but you definitely need to be a master in one of them if you want to generate an abundant amount of leads. If you think about which one is actually better for you, it really just depends on your industry, right? So for some type of industries, cold calling works really well. For other industries, cold emailing works really well, right? So it just depends. Now, if you're doing cold emailing, the trick is you need to get extremely good at copywriting. Copywriting is the name of the game, which is you're sending out emails, you're convincing someone to take a meeting with you just from that cold email. Now, if you're getting good on the phone, it's just practice, talking to people, not being afraid of rejection, learning how to handle objections on the fly, being really quick in how you think. So whatever the case is, you just need to be extremely good and you need to focus on your craft, right? Don't think that just because you send 1,000 emails that they're going to respond. They're not. You actually have to write good emails, provide value in that email in order for them to want to respond to you. Now, moving on to the next point, right? Yes, you need to get good at your craft, but you also need to stay consistent. So when I'm coaching people or when I'm, trying to give advice to different people who do any type of sales and they say, hey, Patrick, I'm not getting enough sales. There's not enough people that want to buy my product and service. I'm like, all right, great. Well, how many meetings do you do a month? Usually they'll be like, oh, like 4. And I'm like, okay, so the whole month you're telling me that you only had 4 meetings, which averages out to 1 a week. And you're complaining that you don't make any sales. Could it be that you're not talking to enough people? Of course, 4 people aren't going to buy. You don't even know what your conversion rate is. If you're converting at a 10%, right, from a stranger to customer, and you only did 4, well, you haven't even hit enough people to even make that conversion work. So there's a problem, right? The reason why you're not generating sales is because you're not getting enough meetings. The reason why you're not getting enough meetings is because you're not reaching out to enough people. So it's like, if you're doing 10, what about your competitor who's sending out 100 or 1,000 per month? How are you going to compete against this person, right? Are you just crossing your fingers and hoping that you get lucky? So I think a lot of people don't realize how big volume actually matters in sales. You have to talk to more people in order to get better at sales, in order to improve your product so that people will actually buy your stuff. If you're only doing 4 meetings a month, it's just not enough volume for you to even know whether or not people want to buy your product and service, right? And this brings me to the next point, which is you want to measure everything. So most people, they don't realize the mistakes they're making. They're just making these mistakes and they wonder why nothing is working. But the problem is that they're not measuring everything. So if you measure like, hey, this month I did 100 calls. Out of those 100 calls, this many people agreed to another meeting. Out of that, they move on to the sale, whatever the case is, depending on your sales cycle. If you're not measuring anything, how do you actually know you're getting better? Of course, you can kind of like guesstimate. You could be like, oh, I made about this many calls, this many people converted, right? But a lot of people, you just haven't even had the volume to even make a guess on what is going on. And you don't have the experience quite yet, to be frank, right? The key here is you measure everything, use software to measure everything so that you don't have to do it by hand or like writing in an Excel sheet. Like, use some kind of software that will tell you what your open rate is, what your conversion is, and all these things, because if you're not measuring it, you just cannot get better. And once you actually get results, you start measuring, you start making improvements, you start tweaking things so that things run like a machine. The next tip I have for you is you never want to stop prospecting, because when you do prospect and you're taking meetings and you're closing deals and you're making money, which is all great. Problem is that when you're spending time trying to close deals, you're not spending time prospecting. So what's going to happen is that you might have a lot of leads now, then you may have very few later, and you're basically going on a roller coaster, and it's very emotionally draining to have to constantly go through that and wonder if you're going to hit your sales numbers. So the key here is you just always prospect. Even if you have, all these deals going on, you just keep prospecting, or you have sales development rep do that for you, someone doing it for you. Either case, you need leads coming in every single day, right? Always continue to prospect, have a consistent flow of leads so that you're not desperate, you're not thirsty, you're not hungry for money coming in, because you know at the back of your mind, you got people lined up that potentially want to buy your product and service. And that's going to change how you look at yourself, how you go into a meeting. You're going to be much more confident knowing that you have this abundance mindset, and that just applies to everything in life. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And if you want to check out AppSumo and Cloudura, which is the app we talked about, check the link in the description, and I will see you in the next one.